The wind howled across the frozen tundra, carrying with it the scent of snow and the distant musk of mammoth herds. The sky was a bruised purple, heavy with the promise of storm. In the shadow of a jagged cliff, the clan of the Red Spear huddled in their cave, the fire at its center flickering weakly against the encroaching cold. The clan was small, 23 souls, their faces etched with hunger and the weight of survival. Among them was Kael, a boy of 16 winters, his dark eyes sharp but uncertain, his hands calloused from shaping flint into blades. Kael sat near the fire, his fingers tracing the edge of a spearhead he had crafted. It was his first, and though the elders had nodded in approval, he felt it was not enough. The clan was starving. The last hunt had failed, and the stores of dried meat were gone. The Great Hunt, a ritual to track and kill a mammoth, was their only hope. But it was dangerous, and only the strongest hunters were chosen. Kael, though skilled with a spear, was untested in the eyes of the clan. "Stop fidgeting, Kael," growled Torin, the clan's lead hunter. His broad shoulders blocked the firelight as he sharpened his own spear. "You'll dull that blade before it tastes blood." Kael flushed but held his tongue. Torin was a mountain of a man, his beard streaked with gray, his arms scarred from countless hunts. To Kael, he was both a hero and a judge, one whose approval he desperately sought. "I'm ready," Kael said, his voice steady despite the knot in his stomach. "I can join the hunt." Torin snorted. "Ready? You've never faced a mammoth. They're not deer, boy. One misstep and you're crushed." The other hunters laughed, their voices echoing off the cave walls. Kael's cheeks burned, but he refused to look away. He thought of his mother, Lyra, who had died 2 winters ago when fever swept through the clan. She had always believed in him, whispering tales of the great hunters who had tamed the wilds. Kael wanted to honor her, to prove he was more than a boy. That night, the clan gathered around the fire for the telling, a ritual where the elder, Sura, recounted the stories of their ancestors. Sura was ancient, her hair white as frost, her eyes clouded but sharp. She leaned on a staff carved with symbols of the sun and moon, her voice weaving magic into the air. "Long ago," Sura began, "when the world was young, the great hunters walked with the spirits. They learned the secret of fire from the Sky Mother, who sent a spark to warm their bones. With fire, they drove back the darkness, tamed the beasts, and built the first clans. But fire demands respect. Lose it, and you lose the Sky Mother's blessing." Kael listened, his heart pounding. Fire was sacred to the clan. It was their lifeblood, their shield against the cold. But their fire was weak, and the wood was scarce. Without a successful hunt, they would not survive the winter. As Sura's voice faded, Torin stood. "Tomorrow, we prepare for the great hunt. 5 hunters will go. I will lead. Rorik, Veth, Kala, and—" He paused, his eyes scanning the clan. Kael held his breath, willing Torin to choose him. But Torin's gaze settled on Jarn, a burly hunter with a proven record. Kael's heart sank. He wanted to protest, but the clan's murmurs of approval silenced him. Jarn was a safe choice. Kael was not. After the telling, Kael slipped outside the cave, the cold biting his skin through his deerskin tunic. The stars were sharp above, like chips of flint in the sky. He clenched his spear, his breath clouding in the air. "I'll show them," he whispered. "I'll prove I'm a hunter." The next morning, the clan buzzed with activity. The chosen hunters sharpened their spears, while others prepared offerings for the spirits. Bones and feathers laid at the cave's entrance. Kael watched, his frustration growing. He approached Sura, who sat weaving a basket from dried grass. "Elder," he said, kneeling, "why won't Torin give me a chance? I'm strong. I am fast. I can hunt." Sura's cloudy eyes studied him. "Torin fears for you, Kael. He sees your mother in you, her fire, her stubbornness. But courage alone is not enough. The great hunt tests the heart, not just the arm." "Then let test me," Kael said. "I'm not afraid." Sura smiled faintly. "Fear is not weakness, boy. It is a teacher. Go to the sacred grove. Seek the Sky Mother's guidance. If she speaks, Torin will listen." The sacred grove was a day's journey, a cluster of ancient pines where the clan believed the spirits dwelled. Kael hesitated. The hunters would leave at dawn tomorrow. If he went to the grove, he might miss the hunt entirely. But Sura's words stirred something in him. He needed a sign, something to prove he belonged. Kael packed a small bundle, flint, dried meat, and a water skin, and set out. The tundra stretched before him, vast and unforgiving, dotted with patches of snow and stunted shrubs. He moved quickly, his spear at the ready, wary of wolves or saber-toothed cats. The wind carried strange sounds, distant rumbles, the cry of a hawk. Kael felt small under the sky, but he pressed on. By dusk, he reached the grove. The pines loomed tall, their branches heavy with frost. At the center was a circle of stones, each carved with symbols of the spirits. Kael knelt, his breath shallow. He had never performed a ritual alone. He placed a feather from his bundle on the stones, then struck his flint to spark a small fire. "Sky Mother," he whispered, "show me my path. Am I a hunter? Am I worthy?" The fire crackled, its light dancing on the stones. Kael waited, his heart pounding. The wind stilled, and a strange warmth spread through him. He closed his eyes, and in the darkness, he saw a vision, a mammoth, its tusks gleaming, charging through a storm. Beside it ran a figure, spear in hand, unafraid. Was it him? A twig snapped, shattering the vision. Kael's eyes flew open. A shadow moved beyond the fire, a wolf, its eyes glinting. Kael gripped his spear, his pulse racing. The wolf circled, low and silent. Kael stood, his voice steady. "Back!" he shouted, thrusting the spear. The wolf snarled but retreated, vanishing into the trees. Kael exhaled, his hands trembling. He looked at the fire, now burning brighter. Was this the Sky Mother's sign? He didn't know, but he felt different, stronger, as if the grove had marked him. Kael returned to the clan at dawn, exhausted but determined. The hunters were preparing to leave, their faces grim. Torrens saw him and frowned. "Where were you, boy?" "Chasing dreams." "I went to the sacred grove," Kael said. "The Sky Mother showed me a mammoth. I'm meant to hunt." The clan murmured, some in awe, others in doubt. Torrens' eyes narrowed. "A vision? Convenient. But visions don't kill beasts." Sura stepped forward, her staff tapping the ground. "The grove has spoken. Let Kael join the hunt. If he fails, the spirits will judge him." Torrens hesitated, then nodded. "Fine. But stay close, boy. If you falter, I won't save you." Kael's heart soared. He was part of the Grey Hunt. As the hunters gathered their spears and furs, he felt the weight of his mother's memory, the fire of the grove, and the eyes of the clan. The tundra awaited, vast and deadly, but Kael was ready. The hunters stood over the fallen mammoth, their breaths steaming in the cold, dusk air. The valley was silent now, save for the crackle of their small fire and the distant howl of a wolf. Kael's hands trembled as he pulled his spear from the beast's flank, its blood staining the snow red. He had fought, truly fought, and the weight of it settled into his bones. Torrens' gaze lingered on him, a mix of grudging respect and lingering doubt, but there was no time for words. The clan needed this meat, and the journey back would be as perilous as the hunt itself. The butchering took hours. The hunters worked with flint knives, their movements practiced, but slow, careful not to waste a scrap. They carved slabs of meat from the mammoth's haunches, piling them onto rawhide sheets. The hide itself was stripped in large sections, its thick fur still warm to the touch. Bones were set aside, some for tools, others for offerings to the spirits. Kala, despite her injury, worked alongside Veth, her hands steady as she tied bundles with sinew. Rorik sat nearby, his wounded arm wrapped in deerskin, his face pale but determined. "We'll move at first light," Torrens said, wiping blood from his hands. "The wolves will come soon. They always do." Kael nodded, his eyes scanning the darkening valley. He thought of the wolf in the sacred grove, its retreat. These wolves would not be so easily driven off. The scent of blood would draw them, and the hunters were weary, their strength sapped by the fight. As night fell, the hunters built a larger fire, piling branches from the nearby pines. The flames roared, casting long shadows across the valley. Kael sat close to the heat, his spear at his side, watching the darkness. Kala joined him, her braid loose now, her face streaked with dirt and blood. "You did well today," she said, her voice soft but firm. "I didn't think you had it in you." Kael looked at her, surprised. Kala rarely spoke to him, her focus always on the hunt. "I had to," he said. "For the clan. For my mother." Kala nodded, her eyes distant. "We all have our reasons. But the tundra doesn't care. It takes what it wants." Her words hung in the air, heavy with truth. Kael thought of the mammoth, its life given for theirs. He wondered if the spirits were watching, if the Sky Mother approved of their kill. He touched the feather in his pouch, the one he had placed on the mammoth's tusk, and whispered a silent prayer. The first wolf howl came just before dawn, a chilling sound that echoed through the valley. The hunters snapped awake, their hands reaching for spears. Torin stood, his silhouette stark against the firelight, his flint axe gleaming. "Ready yourselves," he said. "They're close." Kael gripped his spear, his heart pounding. The fire had dwindled, its embers glowing faintly. Veth kicked dirt over it, smothering the light. "They'll see us," he whispered. "Better to fight in the dark." The wolves came as shadows, their eyes glinting in the faint starlight. There were 6 of them, larger than the one Kael had faced in the grove, their ribs visible beneath matted fur. They circled the hunters, low growls rumbling from their throats. The mammoth's carcass lay between them, a prize neither side would abandon. Torin struck first, his axe swinging in a wide arc. A wolf yelped, blood spraying, but the others lunged. Kael thrust his spear at a wolf charging toward Kala, catching it in the shoulder. It snarled, snapping at the shaft, but Kael held firm, driving the flint tip deeper. Kala finished it with a quick strike, her own spear bloodied. Rorik struggled, his wounded arm slowing him. A wolf leapt at him, jaws wide, but Veth intervened, his spear piercing the beast's side. The fight was chaotic, a blur of teeth and flint, the hunter's shouts mixing with the wolf's snarls. Kael felt a claw rake his arm, the pain sharp and hot, but he didn't falter. He thought of the clan, of Sura's stories, of the fire that bound them. He would not fail. At last, the wolves retreated, 3 of them dead, the others limping into the darkness. The hunters stood panting, their furs torn, their bodies bruised. Kael's arm bled, but the wound was shallow. Torin looked at him, his face unreadable. "You're stubborn, boy," he said. "But that's a hunter's heart." Kael managed a weak smile, the pain in his arm fading under the weight of Torin's words. They had survived, but the journey was far from over. At dawn, the hunters packed the last of the mammoth meat, their packs heavy with the weight of survival. The valley was stained with blood, both mammoth and wolf, a testament to the night's violence. Kael looked at the carcass one last time, its bones picked clean by the fight. He placed another feather on the ground, a final offering, then turned to follow the others. The trek back began under a gray sky, the air thick with the promise of snow. The hunters moved slowly, their injuries slowing their pace. Kael walked beside Kala, his arm wrapped in deerskin, his spear dragging in the snow. He felt the weight of the hunt, the cost of their victory, but also the fire of purpose. The clan would eat, the fire would burn, and he, Kael, was a hunter. But the tundra had one last test. On the second day, a blizzard descended, its winds howling like a pack of wolves. The snow blinded them, erasing their tracks, the cold biting through their furs. Torin led, his voice steady despite the storm, but even he struggled to find the path. The hunters tied themselves together with sinew, their hands numb, their faces raw. Kael thought of the Sky Mother, of the fire in the grove. He whispered her name, begging for guidance. The storm raged, but a strange warmth filled him, a memory of the vision. He saw the mammoth again, its tusks gleaming, leading him through the snow. Was it a spirit? A sign? He didn't know, but he followed the feeling, shouting to Torin over the wind. "There!" Kael pointed, his voice hoarse. "A ridge. Shelter." Torin hesitated, then nodded. The hunters stumbled toward the ridge, finding a shallow cave beneath it. They collapsed inside, their packs heavy with frozen meat, their bodies shivering. Veth struck flint, sparking a small fire, its warmth a lifeline in the storm. Kael watched the flames, his vision blurring with exhaustion. The Sky Mother had heard him. They would survive. The storm raged for 2 days, but the hunters endured, their fire burning bright. When the snow finally cleared, they emerged, their spirits renewed. The clan was close now, and Kael could almost feel the warmth of their cave, the voices of their songs. He looked at Torin, at Kala, at the others, and saw not just hunters but family. The tundra had tested them, and they had answered. The tundra stretched before the hunters, a vast expanse of snow and frost, shimmering under the pale light of a newly cleared sky. The blizzard had passed, leaving the air sharp and biting, but the hunters' spirits were high. Kael walked with a steady gait, his arms still sore from the wolf's claw, but the pain felt like a badge of honor. The mammoth meat weighed heavily in their rawhide packs, a promise of survival for the clan. Torin led the way, his broad silhouette cutting through the snow, while Kala, Veth, and Rorik followed, their injuries slowing them but not breaking their resolve. The cave where they had sheltered was now a fading memory, its small fire a spark of hope that had carried them through the storm. Kael thought of the Sky Mother, of the mammoth vision that had guided him to the ridge. He felt her presence in the wind, in the crunch of snow beneath his deerskin boots. The clan was close, he could feel it, and the thought of their fire, their songs, warmed him more than any flame. On the 3rd day since the storm, they spotted the familiar jagged cliff that marked the clan's territory. Smoke curled faintly from the cave's entrance, a thin gray thread against the white landscape. Kael's heart leapt. They had made it. Torin raised his spear, letting out a deep, guttural shout that echoed across the tundra. The sound was answered by cries from the cave, children's voices, high and excited, followed by the deeper calls of the adults. The clan poured out to meet them, their figures small against the snow, but growing larger with every step. Children ran ahead, their deerskin tunics flapping, their hands reaching for the mammoth hides. Elders followed, their faces lined with worry, now softening into relief. Sura stood at the cave's mouth, her white hair glowing in the sunlight, her staff raised in blessing. Kael saw his younger sister, Mira, among the children, her dark eyes wide with awe as she ran to him. "Kael," she cried, throwing her arms around him. "You're back. You're a hunter." Kael knelt, hugging her tightly, his throat tight with emotion. "I'm back, Mira," he said, "and we brought meat. The clan will eat." The hunters were surrounded, their packs untied. The mammoth meat and hides passed from hand to hand. The clan marveled at the haul, their voices rising in a chant of gratitude to the spirits. Sura approached, her cloudy eyes fixed on Kael. "The Sky Mother has guided you," she said, her voice trembling with pride. "You have honored your mother's memory." Kael nodded, tears stinging his eyes. He thought of Lyra, of her stories, her belief in him. He had done it. For her, for the clan, for himself. That night, the cave was alive with celebration. The fire roared at the center, its flames fed by wood from the valley, casting a golden glow on the rough stone walls. Mammoth meat sizzled over the flames, its fat dripping and popping, filling the air with a rich, savory scent. The clan sang songs of the great hunt, their voices weaving a tapestry of joy and survival. Kael sat among the hunters, his spear at his side, his heart full. Torin raised a bone cup, his voice booming over the noise. "To the hunters," he shouted, and to Kael, who proved his heart. The clan cheered, their voices shaking the cave. Kael felt the weight of their approval, a warmth that rivaled the fire. He looked at Sura, who nodded, her smile faint but proud. Mira sat beside him, her small hands clutching a piece of roasted meat, her laughter bright. But the celebration was cut short. A young scout, barely 12 winters old, burst into the cave, his face pale, his breath ragged. "Elder Sura," he gasped. "The fire, it's gone. The sacred flame at the spirit stone, it's out." A hush fell over the clan, the songs dying in their throats. The sacred flame, kept burning at the spirit stone outside the cave, was a symbol of the Sky Mother's blessing. It had been lit since the clan's founding, tended day and night, a beacon of their connection to the spirits. If it went out, the Sky Mother's favor was lost, and misfortune would follow. Sura's face darkened, her staff tapping the ground. "Ow," she demanded. "Who tended it?" The scout shook his head. "I did, Elder. But the wind, it was too strong. The snow smothered it. I tried to restart it, but the embers are cold." Murmurs of fear rippled through the clan. Kael felt a chill, deeper than the tundra's cold. He remembered Sura's story. Lose the fire, and you lose the Sky Mother's blessing. The clan had survived the winter so far, but without the sacred flame, their luck would turn. Sickness, predators, starvation, the spirit's wrath would be merciless. Torin stood, his face grim. "We must relight it. Now, before the spirits turn away." Sura nodded. The flame must come from a pure source, a fire blessed by the Sky Mother. "Kael, you saw her in the grove. You must go to the sacred grove again, bring back a new flame." Kael's heart pounded. The grove was a day's journey, and the tundra was still dangerous. Wolves, cold, and a lingering threat of another storm. But he saw the clan's fear, felt Myra's small hand clutching his. He had become a hunter, a protector. This was his duty. "I'll go," Kael said, standing. "I'll bring the fire back." Torin placed a hand on his shoulder. "You won't go alone. I'll come with you. The clan needs this flame, and I won't let you fail." Kala and Veth volunteered to guard the cave, their injuries still healing, while Rorik stayed to help tend the clan. Kael and Torin prepared quickly, gathering flint, a small bundle of dry moss, and their spears. The clan watched, their faces a mix of hope and fear, as the two hunters stepped into the night. The tundra was dark, the stars sharp above, their light cold and unyielding. Kael and Torin moved swiftly, their breath clouding in the air, their spears at the ready. The wind carried the distant howl of wolves, a reminder of the dangers they had already faced. Kael thought of the grove, of the wolf he had driven off, of the vision that had marked him. He would not fail now. By midday, they reached the sacred grove, its ancient pines standing tall, their branches heavy with frost. The circle of stones was untouched, the spiral symbols etched into them glowing faintly in the sunlight. Kael knelt, placing the moss in the center, and struck his flint. Sparks flew, catching the moss, a small flame flickering to life. "Sky Mother," Kael whispered, "bless this fire. Protect our clan." The flame grew, its warmth spreading through the grove. Torin watched, his face solemn, and added a small branch, the fire crackling brighter. Kael felt a presence, a warmth that went beyond the flames, as if the Sky Mother herself was there, her approval a soft whisper in the wind. They fashioned a torch from pine bark and moss, keeping the flame alive, and began the journey back. The fire was fragile, its light a small defiance against the tundra's darkness. Kael and Torin took turns shielding it, their hands numb, their faces raw from the wind. The wolves howled again, closer now, but the hunters pressed on, the torch their beacon. As they neared the clan's cave, the sacred flame in Kael's hands, the first light of dawn broke over the horizon. The clan waited at the spirit stone, their faces lit with hope. Kael approached, his torch held high, and touched the flame to the stone's center. The fire caught, roaring to life, its light banishing the darkness. The clan erupted in cheers, their voices rising in a song of gratitude. Sura raised her staff, tears in her eyes. "The Sky Mother smiles on us," she cried. "Kael, you are her chosen." Kael stood, the torch still in his hands, its flame a mirror of the fire in his heart. He had hunted, he had survived, and now he had brought the Sky Mother's blessing back to his people. He was a hunter, a guardian, a son of the clan. The tundra stretched before them, vast and wild, but Kael knew they would endure. The fire burned, and with it, the clan's hope.